It might be my greatest moment. It's been
Really?
all downhill. It's all downhill since then.
You peaked at R2D2.
I did. I was working on this sermon. I wanted to have some fun at the beginning, just talking about collecting. So I brought up this little R2D2 toy that I had when I was a kid. I thought I was a pretty decent collector. And I said, well, that's until I met the guy who made this R2. And then R2 just by himself wheels out onto the stage. I have a conversation with him and then he rolls off and I get into the sermon. I wish I could just, everywhere I go to preach, just take R2 with me.
Hello there, and welcome to the Rogue Worship Leader Podcast. This is the show where we sit down and talk to worship and tech leaders and just hang out and nerd out about everything and anything. Today, I'm joined by Wade Joye. Wade is a worship leader, a songwriter. He is now a speaker, an author, and a coach of ministry leaders. Wade, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Scott, thanks for having me. I have been so excited to talk about so many things that I love today. God, ministry, worship,
Awesome.
Star Wars, all of it. I can't wait.
I've been finding more and more like worship and ministry leaders in the space are just massive nerds. Maybe not just about Star Wars, but like just, and it could be anything. It could be, guitar, it could be gear, it could be sound or lighting or video, audio, things like that. Reading. There's just a ton of hobbies that we can have outside of the worship space. So we get pigeonholed into like, oh, you're the worship guy or you're the ministry guy. And it's like, we're real people that have real, passions outside of ministry. Ministry is a big part of our life, but then we have these things that we just like connect with and have camaraderie around. So I found that with my page, there's a lot of ministry people, a lot of church people that are just really into Star Wars. And so I set out to make this page and connect with those people, kind of find my tribe. And I absolutely did.
Yeah, your page to me was one of the best things that happened on Instagram in a long time for me.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. I've had some interactions with you in the DMs. We've shared some things back and forth. You sent me some things to add to the meme templates and the repertoire, and I so appreciate that. So that's most of these people I've been meeting through Instagram. You find out, you're just like, oh man, they like Star Wars. Well, how much do they really like Star Wars? And they're sharing. I got worship leaders and songwriters from all over the world like sharing memes with me, and they're like, oh, you're the Star Wars guy, and I love it. So Wade is one of those that has done that. And Wade, before we begin, I just want to give people a chance to get to know you a little bit and get to learn where Wade came from, how you got started in worship ministry. Most people might know you on like maybe their song charts. They've seen the name Wade Joye on like the CCLI writing credits on some Elevation songs. You were originally a worship leader at Elevation Church.
Yeah, I was a worship leader and then served as worship pastor for almost 15 years at Elevation.
That is awesome. So how did you get started in worship and kind of what led you to that position at Elevation?
Yeah, my journey as a worship leader was a slow, long process. I started playing guitar in high school, honestly, just to try to impress girls. I was a short guy. I needed some extra help there. So I thought
needed a boost there. Yep.
Yeah. But I quickly started writing songs about my faith. I'd grown up in church. My granddad was a pastor. My dad was a music minister at the church. And I really wanted to get into like the Christian alternative music scene in like the early 90s. I don't know if anybody remembers bands like Prayer Chain. And there was a band called Poor Old Lou, which I really loved.
Okay.
I mean, this is some deep cuts right now. Not many
yeah.
people know about this. But I had a band called Gamaliel's Advice. And then I had a band called the Wade Joye Band right after college. And I always wanted to go places and do my own music. I wanted to kind of be a CCM star. And I found that anytime I would go someplace, they always wanted me to lead worship. And then they might give me like a token concert at a youth retreat of doing my own stuff. But they really wanted me to lead worship. And I fought that for a while, but I kept seeing God's hand on me when I led worship. And it was a real slow just process of God changing my heart to begin to love leading his people in worship. And I kind of laid down the songwriting side of trying to write my own like performance music.
Okay.
And then I went on staff at a church in South Carolina, Mount Horeb United Methodist Church. I wasn't Methodist. I was the contemporary worship leader, which that should
Mm.
tell you everything you need to know. It wasn't very contemporary. It was
Yeah.
nothing like Elevation. But I was the youth pastor there as well. And I would say over those 3 years, God showed me the power of the local church and what he was doing in the lives of the students there and just the people that I got to interact with. And I just fell in love with leading God's church in worship in those 3 years. And I got to learn how to submit to preferences that weren't necessarily my own
Mm.
musically. And I feel like
Yeah.
God used that to lay the groundwork for Elevation, which just to kind of tell you how I ended up there. I had, when I was leading worship at youth camps and retreats, I'd come across several times a youth speaker, which ended up being Pastor Stephen. And
Mm.
him and I would just, anytime we got to do a camp together, we just really connected and enjoyed spending time together. I lost touch with him and I brought him in to do a Disciple Now weekend at that Methodist church. I brought him in and I brought Mac Brock in to lead worship, which is how they met. Because Mac and I had
Okay.
known each other for years. We'd been in bands that did stuff together. Him and I had been in a Bible study together. We grew up in Columbia. And Pastor Stephen told us about this church he had just started called Elevation. I was in the process of thinking I was going to plant a church in Columbia, but he invited me up to lead worship. Mac and I actually led worship together our first time at Elevation, like February 2007,
Oh.
6 or 7, something like that.
Oh, cool. So Mac and you started at the same time
Well,
or
our
around the same time?
yeah, me, him, and Chris actually came on staff at the same time, which that's kind of part of the story. But him and I led worship
Okay.
together for the first time. And so Pastor Stephen ended up asking me to come on staff as the worship leader and production director for the first like satellite campus. And
Okay.
I said no, because I thought I was supposed to plant this church in Columbia. And apparently he
Mm.
had also asked Mac to come on staff, and Mac said no. Mac was going to move to LA. And he'd
Goodness.
asked Chris Brown to come on staff because Chris had been leading worship off and on. And Chris said no because he was going to move to Nashville.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and up until that point, Pastor Stephen had led worship and preached for like the first year of the church.
My goodness.
And a couple months later, he tells the story that he was praying and asking God what to do with the worship ministry because he was kind of tired of having to work on chord charts and preach a sermon. And he said,
Yeah.
like, he felt like the Lord said, hire Chris Mack and Wade. So he got us all together in the back room of this Italian restaurant here in Charlotte. Felt super mafia Godfather style. And, and he kind of cast the vision for the worship ministry at Elevation. He looked at me and said, hey, planting this church, I'm sure it'd be a great thing, but if you do it, I think you're going to miss out on God's will for your life. Come be a part of this church that's going to impact thousands of churches one day. And granted, Elevation was just meeting in a high school at the time. He looked at
Wow.
Chris and said, don't go to Nashville and write songs for the local church and make Nashville come to you. And I would say in about a month, all of us had changed our plans. And so the summer of 2007, we all moved. All three of us were living in Columbia. We all moved to Charlotte and started building what became Elevation Worship and the worship ministry of the church. And I was there. My title was worship pastor all 15 years, but
Mhm.
it looked very, very different over the years as the church grew and as things changed. But it was a really great honor to be able to be a part of it.
That's really cool. Wait, it's cool to hear kind of the prequel trilogy, if you will, of
Yes.
Elevation, like getting some backstory and some world building for that. So that's really cool. Thanks for sharing that with us. And it's something you said, a couple things that you said about your story struck me. Like, talk to me a little bit about what it was like. There's this like funnel that it seems to be for young men or young ladies who are in like kind of the Christian alternative space or the Christian rock space.
Uh-huh.
That's where I cut my teeth playing music as well. I was a bassist in a Christian punk band at the local church. The youth group met,
Uh-huh.
we formed a band. So like, and I've seen pictures of you. If you Google Wade Joy, you can
Please
find
don't.
the picture of like the emo sweep. You can find
Yeah.
those pictures of his rocker days. So, I mean, tell me a little bit about your journey. Kind of like God seems to use that funnel, if you will, of pulling people out of maybe the rock space and then go into worship, and that seems to be a common thread. So what was that like? Kind of changing that direction. You've changed your genre direction, and you've also changed like where you lived and what church you were going to plant. So talk to me about how God moves in those moments and works to change those plans. Maybe use our passion to maybe what we wanted to do, but kind of refocus them.
So much of the Christian life is just staying open-handed before the Lord and saying, here's what I love, here are my dreams, but I lay all of those at your feet, God, and I'm going to do my best to steward what you've given me, to take the best step I know to take today. And I think sometimes we get so paralyzed waiting for God to give us all the details and all the answers and all the certainty. But one of my favorite verses, I think it's Proverbs 16:9, that God directs the steps of the godly. I think that God directs us as we are taking steps, not as we're standing still. And so for
Yeah.
me, I might have gotten into music for not the most pure reasons, but as I started that journey, God began to grow the musical skills that I had and the songwriting skills that I had. And he started to expose me to ministry in a way that was really, really powerful for me to see people's lives changed by the gospel and get to go to so many different churches, so many different types of ministries and see the Holy Spirit at work. And as I was doing that, he slowly was changing my heart. He slowly was changing
Mm.
my desires. And I would have never said, because honestly, I didn't mention this as part of my story, but I was really hesitant to do anything in the local church because my granddad, who was a pastor, led me to the Lord, baptized me in sixth grade. He also had an affair with his secretary in sixth grade at the church, had started drinking again. He was a recovered alcoholic, and it almost blew up his marriage. It did blow up the church. And
Wow.
thankfully, the Lord like restored him and his marriage. He never got back into ministry, but I just saw so much just ugliness in the church that I was like, God, I love you. I want to follow you, but I don't necessarily want to be involved on staff or doing anything like that at the church. And so it took a long time for God to heal those wounds in my heart. And I would say that Methodist church that I talked about for 3 years was a healing process for me that the Lord used to prepare me for the things that we did at Elevation. And so I think it's easy to try to judge the scene that you're in and think that
Yeah.
that's the whole story of your life, or take the dreams that you have right now and say, God, this is what it has to be. And I think when we do that, we limit God and we limit our own
Mm.
joy, because I think part of the adventure of life is the uncertainty and the way that God surprises us and moves us and heals you in ways that you could never expect and have you do things that you said you would never do. And so, yeah, I think so much about the Elevation story. It feels like a lot of threads of my life that came together that God redeemed, even the rock side of things.
Yeah.
Somebody texted me a song yesterday from an early Elevation album, and they're like, hey,
Mm.
this came on Spotify. And I went back and I listened to that song, and then I listened to a couple more songs. And I hear a lot of, like, especially with Mac and how he was producing at the time, I hear a lot
Hmm.
of those kind of indie rock kind of influences in a lot of the early stuff. And so it was
Yeah.
cool to even explore that in the Christian space. And you see how Elevation has continued to evolve and change there. So I don't know. It's hard to judge your journey in the moment, but when you look back, you see the hand of God just so masterfully just putting all the pieces together in ways that you could never plan.
Yeah. That's really cool. I mean, it's the hero's journey. It's kind of Luke looking out at the twin sons, hoping, wanting more for his life, but not knowing exactly what that could be, and maybe having an
Mhm.
idea of what that could be, because he wanted to fly, he wanted to join the empire.
Yeah.
And then he ended up on a path for even greater things. So that's cool that God used that desire. And I love that indie influence is in those earlier albums, and
Yeah.
we got that back in like the Hillsong United days, and it gave guys like me, young worship leaders and youth groups, kind of
Mhm.
a sound and a kind of an audible identity to kind of latch onto. And it's kind of, the same as what I've done with Rogue. It's you put yourself out there, you make songs, you make content the way that you would want to hear or wish that could be in the church. And then
Yeah.
you attract your tribe and you attract your people. And so I think that's probably largely a lot of why Elevation, Hillsong United, a lot of those types of worship bands have done so well, and that's why worship leaders latch onto those things.
Man, those early Hillsong United albums, I love those, man. I wore them out. And it really did open my mind to what worship music could be, and it kind of blew open the box that I'd put it in.
Yeah.
Was it United We Stand? I think it was the one I was listening to
Yes.
recently. That album is perfection.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I still love playing those songs, either listening to them and worshiping along to them, or playing them on the guitar, or doing throwback services. I'll bring back, we'll do hymns and we'll bring back 90s bangers, but then I got
Uh-huh.
to throw those like United bangers in
Got
there
to.
too, because love them. Yeah, those are retro now for us, which is sad. Those are old school a little bit, but
Uh-huh.
no, such good albums. And even the early Elevation albums are still, really, really good. You want fast songs that have that kind of rock vibe to them, that aren't your typical, K-Love or, Phil Wickham kind of like up tempo songs. You can definitely go back to those older Elevation, older Hillsong songs to grab that energy. And it's really, really cool. So yeah, love that. I love that you were involved in the songwriting for a lot of those songs. You've written like, or helped write "Oh Come to the Altar," "Here Is in Heaven." What are some other big ones that people would know?
Um, yeah, I mean, those two, Resurrecting,
Mm,
just, yeah, I was just thankful to be in the room for a lot of
yeah,
those songs. Out of the 15 years that I was there, probably the first 7 or 8 years, I got to do a lot of worship leading and songwriting. And then my role transitioned more and more to helping pastor people behind the scenes and set vision and stuff like that. But I cherish those days, and just grateful that God let me play a real small part in some of those songs.
that's awesome. Yeah, one of my favorite songs, honestly, like when it comes to chord progression, guitar riff, and things like that, has been "Here's in Heaven." And then that's the very first song that I added the John Williams score
Yeah.
to, and that kind of popped off on TikTok first, and then Instagram. And so I think that was maybe our first interaction,
I think that was
possibly.
why I first reached out to you. I was like, this is amazing. I was like, anything you need from us as Elevation, if you can do more with it like this, you can have it.
Oh, that was awesome. Yeah, and I think it was helpful because I was a little bit afraid. Like I was shocked that Elevation shared it. I think maybe you had a large part in helping
Maybe
that,
so.
be shared by Elevation, and things like that. And so I was a little bit worried about, oh, are they not going to like this? This is a little too blending in with, pop culture and the world and things like that. But it was cool because I think it brings a relevancy to, when you're memed or when you're, put into something like that, it kind of adds a little bit of discussion around the topic. So anytime that we've done "Here Is in Heaven" at church, it's like, everybody's looking to me immediately because I led
Mhm.
from electric guitar. So everybody's looking to me to play the solo instead of the one that, I didn't even know who was the guitarist. Was it
Gosh,
Landon?
that would have been either Lance would have
Oh,
done that. So
Lance.
yeah, I can't remember
Yeah.
who was playing lead. It was probably Lance on that.
Yeah, yeah. So I felt bad because it's such a great lead part. And then, a lot of people reach out to me. They send me live stream recordings of them playing that in service. And I kind of go, the Anakin, what have I done? And because I've never done that live in service, and people have always wanted me to at church. And I'll do it at a rehearsal, but I'm just like, it's too distracting to me. I'm like, this is going to pull people out of worship because
Yeah.
John Williams scores are they're very unique, and
Well,
especially the Binary Sunset for sure.
well, this isn't Star Wars, but our keyboard player who ended up co-producing a lot of our albums, Aaron Robertson, um, which he was in my youth group when I was the youth pastor in
Oh,
Columbia.
nice.
But he's fascinated and like is obsessed with Jurassic Park. And there were
Yes.
times where he was playing keys behind an announcement section or something, and he would
At
work
Elevation?
in, yeah, at Elevation, and he would work in the Jurassic Park theme song, the da da da
No
da
way.
da da.
Yes. I mean, we've
But
all done it.
yeah, so that was his
And
thing.
it's definitely something you have to sneak in. The youth group that I was a part of, we would do a lot of the youth group was on the worship team regularly, but then we would have Youth Sunday where the youth would lead and things like that. But
Mhm.
our keyboardist, Ben, would slip in the Office theme. That's real hard to do. That has to
That's
be
very
done
hard to
very,
do.
very slowly because that's a very peppy, upbeat melody. But yeah, so I think everybody, not everybody, but like most lead players will try to sneak those in and see if they can do
Uh-huh.
it. So I think that's what I was thinking when I made that video. Just like we've all kind of done this, and I kind of put a skit around it. And so it just, that's the whole thing that I have tried to do with Rogue, is that we tend to take ourselves too seriously as worship leaders and as
Mhm.
worship musicians. And it's like, sometimes it's fun to just have a little bit of fun. Worship can be reverent. It can be, you can explore those areas of praise, worship, lament, all those things.
Mhm.
But it's like, God, I think, would want us to have a little bit of fun every now and
Yeah.
again, not all the time, and not make a joke of it. But I think that's at the heart of why we do those things, just to have some camaraderie and some fun with the things that we play.
Yeah, I think joy is definitely a a huge part of worship, and our job as worship leaders is to help people find joy in the Lord. And so I think there is, within, like you said, its proper bounds,
Hmm.
finding ways just to have fun doing it and
Yeah.
realizing that that in and of itself can be an offering to God. And I think taking what we do very seriously, which is leading people into the presence of God, pointing them towards Christ, but also not taking ourselves very seriously. I think
Yeah.
that I like how I like the heart behind why you say you do what you do, because I do think we can take ourselves too seriously sometimes
Hmm.
and end up being pretty self-absorbed,
Yeah.
just not just as worship leaders, just as human beings.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so finding ways just to relax a little bit and laugh at ourselves and have fun, I think is actually a really healthy thing.
Yeah, for sure. So I want to use that to segue a little bit more into like the nerd part of the show. I wanted to talk quickly to you about, you've spoken at Elevation, you've preached before, you're starting to kind of step into that role, or maybe not starting, but you're continuing to move on from worship into coaching and speaking. And a couple years back, you had sent me a clip at Elevation. I believe you were speaking at Elevation with an R2D2 on stage, right?
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about that. How did that come about?
It might be my greatest moment. It's been
Really?
all downhill. It's all downhill since then.
You peaked at R2D2.
I did. Uh, well, there's a guy who was on staff who's still a dear friend who's helped me mix my podcast and stuff. But his name is Ryan Monette, and he would fit right in with this conversation because he is a geek and nerd, like is probably even more passionate about this stuff than you and I are. And
Nice.
he
Oh, I
spent
bet.
4 years building this life-size R2D2, and it's remote controlled. It can pretty much do everything you've ever seen R2 do. And I was working on this sermon. I was playing with the theme of what are you collecting, and how so much of life is we spend trying to collect achievements and accolades for ourselves, where the gospel is all about like laying down your life and taking up your cross. So I wanted to have some fun at the beginning, just talking about collecting. So I brought
Mhm.
up this little R2D2 toy that I had when I was a kid. And I still have it. I cherish it. And I talked about some of the Star Wars things that I collected and how
Yeah.
I thought I was a pretty decent collector. And I said, well, that's until I saw the guy who made this R2. And then R2 just by himself wheels out onto the stage.
That's awesome.
I have a conversation with him, and Ryan's in the back controlling the beats and spinning R2's head and everything like that. And then he rolls off, and I get into the sermon. And so that,
That's
yeah, I
cool.
think almost every May the 4th, I'm posting a clip of that. So
Yeah.
it
That's
was
amazing.
fun. I wish I could just everywhere I go to preach, just take R2 with me. But it's not
Yeah.
quite feasible. I tried to get Ryan to donate him to my ministry, but that didn't work
Right.
either.
Yeah. Given to the Lord, your
Yes.
R2D2. That's awesome. No, and I love that you brought up collecting too, because, as you can see with my background, I'm a little bit of a collector. This is honestly, it's one wall on my, in my studio. And, I
Uh,
have, most of my collecting is with cosplay. I do cosplaying as Boba Fett. And so I have like a giant, you can't see it right now, but I have a giant mannequin in the corner with
I
my
think I've
suit
seen you
on.
post
So I have a,
pictures of it before.
yeah, so I have a life-size Boba Fett sitting down here. So that's like the biggest I've ever felt as a collector. But you're right, when these droid guys or these like cosplayers who have these insane movie accurate costumes come out, it's just like, man, I feel like this small of a collector, but talk to me a little bit about your collecting journey, because you said you're a little bit of a collector, and honestly, the things that they have out now, not just Star Wars, but all the things that are out there as far as collectibles and trinkets and paraphernalia have it's so advanced now, as opposed to when we
Yeah,
were kids, and you mentioned your R2 that you had as a kid. So talk to me about your collector
man.
journey a little bit, what you enjoy collecting.
Well, when I was a kid, I mean, I distinctly remember because I'm 49 now. So I grew up in the heyday of like the original trilogy and all that. And I remember you could take the little proof of purchases off the back of the toy boxes. And if you
Yeah.
collected a certain amount of those, you could send them in. And I remember I was saving up to get Luke's Bespin fatigues from Empire Strikes
Ah,
Back. And I never
yeah.
got enough to
Oh
get that.
no.
One of my greatest regrets in life.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I kept all the Star Wars toys I had from a kid. So I have like, do you remember the
Nice.
Darth Vader case where you would open it up and you put your figures in there?
Yes.
I have
Yeah.
like
Was
two
it
of
is like
those.
his bust or something? The
Yes.
case was his bust. Yeah.
So I had like two of those still filled with stuff. I have like the AT-AT or AT-AT, however you want to say it.
Yes.
Just so many toys. And I remember I pulled them out to show my kids when they were younger. And
Hmm.
I expected them to treat the toys with the same amount of respect that I did. Well, when my
Yeah.
kids were younger, they just were like taking them out and pulling the arms and everything, and I was like, "What in the world are you
Yeah.
doing?"
Oh no. Like the
And
old Kenner stuff?
yeah, and my wife
Oh
kind of
no.
gave me that look. She was like, "You realize you're a 40-something-year-old man who's mad that your kids are playing with your old toys." And I'm like, "Yes, okay." take, take it less seriously. I did maybe move a few of those away from the pile and gave them certain
Yeah.
ones that they could play with. So I have the old toys.
Hmm.
I've got like my lightsaber back there in my background. And then
Nice.
I've got all my kids. So I have three daughters, twin girls that are 17, and my youngest daughter turns 13 in like a week. Like
Mm.
my youngest daughter, she has Ahsoka's lightsabers.
Oh, that's cool.
Adley has the dark saber. And then
Yes.
Liana, gosh, what does Liana have? I think um, she might have the same one I do, the Anakin lightsaber.
Mm.
Uh, let's see. I've got just a lot of trinkets. I mean, I
Yeah.
even have like a Darth Vader mug right there. It's just kind of all throughout the house. I have a little sign that says "Hello" there as people walk in the door.
Yes.
Most people don't get, but if you do,
Yep.
you appreciate it.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I have a lot of Star Wars Lego. I've gotten into that recently.
Yes. Star Wars Lego is great. It's good stuff.
I mean, I love. We have a bunch of this like Funko Pop Star Wars toys
Yeah.
upstairs. Got a lot of art. So we have a little room where the kids play video games, and I've put all the like Star Wars art that we have and different. I have this one really cool
It's
piece
cool.
that has it's like 9 panels, and it has each of the main lightsaber battles from the 9 saga
Oh
movies.
yeah. Yeah.
It it's pretty cool.
I think I've seen that. That looks really cool.
Yeah, so I love just all that kind of stuff. I don't have any of the helmets. I do want to get a Vader helmet at some point. I would love that.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
so I think you definitely have a few legs up on me when it comes to collecting, but I aspire to get there one day.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. The helmets, I will warn you, the helmets are a gateway into, because then you want to wear them, and then you're like that. Then you find yourself on the costuming forums, and you end up getting into costuming. I mean, not everybody does that, but yeah, some people just collect the helmets, and I commend those people because you have a tremendous amount of self control. I do not,
I will say
but no,
this. Oh,
it's cool.
and speaking of that, so my wife and I, we went and did this like 2-day life planning, spiritual discernment process with this older couple that I really respect. And part of it, as you're looking over the next 3 years, they have you like say, what are like some memories that you want to make either with as a couple or with your kids, and you're going to put them down here and you're going to commit to doing them. And so Star Wars Celebration is on my list. I've
Yes,
never been. I want to go. And so this is me
that's
putting it
awesome.
out there so you can hold me accountable that I
All right.
that I
I
do that in the
will.
next 2 years now.
That would be amazing. I know this year, the one that is coming up is, I think, in Japan, but most times it's in California or some other place like that. And that's been a dream of mine too. So I hope you make it there. That would be
So
incredible.
maybe we'll go together.
That would be sweet. Let's do it. That'll be a goal. So, I mean, talking about Star Wars, I have to ask, because we've talked about collecting and we've talked about the things that you have. And you mentioned you had, is that an Anakin lightsaber in the background you mentioned?
Yeah.
And so is that what, episode 2 Anakin?
No,
Or is that
that's the episode 3 Luke Skywalker, eventually
okay?
Rey. I
Like
mean,
the
it's the
Graflex, like the
it's the
classic.
saber. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, gotcha. So I was going to ask, like, tell me, because people are going to want to know, like, what's your favorite Star Wars movie
Hmm.
and trilogy, and then who's your favorite character in Star Wars?
Okay. So favorite as a kid, it was Luke, but now as an adult, it's Obi-Wan.
Oh yeah.
I love Obi-Wan, specifically Ewan's Obi-Wan for multiple reasons. But I would say my favorite trilogy. What did I say? I had to say my favorite movie. Empire is, I feel
Yeah.
like, has to be the best.
Has to be. Yeah.
I almost feel like you have to put that in a separate category, and then I answer like my second favorite. So
Yeah.
Empire
Yeah.
original trilogy, just nothing will ever compare to that, just because that's what I grew up
Right.
on. But I would say next to Empire, the one I enjoy watching the most is Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
I love that movie, and
Mhm.
taking our family to see it in theaters this past May when it re-released was the
Yes.
best. I loved it so much. I really enjoy the Obi-Wan Anakin relationship,
Mhm.
especially when you add the Clone Wars into it and you see
Absolutely.
the actual depth of their friendship, which I wish was explored more in the prequels.
Mhm.
But once you have that context, which by the way, my kids several years ago, they started a Star Wars YouTube channel called the 3POs, and they did a Clone Wars rewatch. And
That's awesome.
they got
Oh,
about
I'm gonna have to
halfway
check that
through.
out. Yeah.
So they're geeks about all this stuff as well. But yeah, I
Mhm.
love that Anakin Obi-Wan relationship. But I even enjoy the sequels. I know a lot of people hate the sequels. I did not like episode 9. But I loved episode 7. I respected a lot of episode 8, even though it was very divisive. I
Yeah.
might not have made some of the choices, but I still respected it.
Right.
But then episode 9, I didn't like. So I was really looking forward to the Obi-Wan series, and I
Yeah.
enjoyed. There were parts of it that I loved. I absolutely loved. There were parts
Mhm.
I didn't like as much. But Obi-Wan, anything he's in, anything that they put Anakin in, so like the Ahsoka series and stuff, I will
Yeah.
watch all of that stuff because
100%. Yeah.
yeah, I geek out
I
on that.
absolutely love that. Like, Ewan McGregor is, I mean, he was already a respected actor. He's done things outside
Yeah.
of Star Wars, and so he was never really typecast. He was a fantastic Obi-Wan. I mean,
Hmm.
bar none, there was no better, option to play a younger Alec Guinness. So I love that choice, but he has such range, and not that Hayden Christensen doesn't, but Hayden was, he did like maybe 1 or 2 movies outside of Star Wars, but he really did get pigeonholed or like typecast
Hmm.
into the Anakin character. And then he was so, despised and hated, I think, by a lot of people during the prequel era when they were coming out and after they were released. And now, if you look at, because you probably watched Star Wars Celebration and you've seen his
He is
return into
adored
the
now.
limelight, and he's adored, and I'm here for it. I absolutely
Yeah.
love that he's getting the love that he deserves, because all those people, yeah, our age and younger, because I think, I'm 40 now, and I was a teen when the prequels came out. And so I didn't like them as much. I wish we would have explored after Return of the Jedi, and I wanted to see more of Luke's story.
Yeah.
But as they grew on me, and I think they did for a lot of people, but especially people younger than me, definitely that was their Star Wars. That was their introduction to the saga. And so now those folks are older, and they are the ones that are louder and more vocal, and they are giving both Ewan and Hayden the love they deserve. And
Yeah.
I'm 100% here for it. It's
I
fantastic to
think I
watch.
think Hayden was actually a way better actor than people gave him credit for.
Yeah.
I think the way he was directed and the script kind of forced him into certain things.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I feel like the version of Anakin he does in Episode 3, like he was made to do that side of Anakin.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But yeah, I love the resurgence that he's gotten. And I would love to explore. I'm with you. I think part of the hate on the sequels, not to make this about that, is that
Hmm.
our generation, we wanted to see the version of Luke Skywalker after Return of the Jedi. Like that little
Yeah.
glimpse of him we got in season 2 of Mando in the finale.
Yes.
Like that's
Yep.
what we wanted to see, or at least we wanted to see
Yeah.
an older version of that Luke. And when
Yeah.
we were deprived of that, that's what made the sequels really hard to stomach.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that's one of the things, as someone who's grown up with that quintessential hero of Luke
Mhm.
Skywalker, in that very epic classic story that was told. You want to see him in his prime. You want to see him like kick butt as a Jedi Knight. And we got
Mhm.
the end of Return of the Jedi. We got that. And you're right. Season 2 of Mando, it was like, thank you, John Favreau, for doing that, for putting him in there, and Dave Filoni as well. Because I mean, getting that glimpse, as small and as short as it was absolutely what we as the older fans needed to see
Yeah.
Luke as. So having him come on that ship, do the damage he did, and save the day, that was absolutely what we wanted.
So speaking of the Skywalkers, I know we were talking about this right before we hit record, but I
Mhm.
can't believe that there was going to be a Ben Solo movie potentially that Adam Driver
Yeah.
was on board with. He was trying to pitch, and then
Right.
Bob Iger shut it down. I
Yeah.
want to see that movie so bad.
Really? Yeah.
I do.
I'm still processing it. Like I just learned about it, and we all just learned about it a few days
Uh-huh.
ago. At the time of recording, it's like toward the end of October, and this news came out of nowhere. They must have been working on this kind of in the shadows, and then it sounds like it was going to be a post episode 9 kind of thing. Is that what you
Yeah.
heard?
I think the working title was The Hunt for Ben Solo. And I mean,
Yeah.
I have mixed feelings about it.
Mhm.
Like, I don't like cheapening a character's death.
Yes.
So I'm
Yeah.
really curious how they were gonna do this. But in a world with Force ghosts and things like
Right.
that, there's so many different options. And especially since he has the Skywalker blood,
Yeah.
that gives him a lot of flexibility here. But I
Yeah.
feel like at the end of episode 9, which had a lot of problems in my book, but
Yeah.
we barely got a redeemed Ben Solo. I think he
Mhm.
said one word or something like that.
Yeah.
And then nothing. I feel like there was so much that we could explore with his character. And the fact that Adam Driver, who's a really great actor,
Yeah.
felt like there was unfinished business with that character, that intrigues me. And so that
Yeah.
at least gets me curious. And the fact that it's Steven Soderbergh who is, was on board with it. I don't know if it's the right thing for the future of Star Wars, but it's something that
Right.
at least I personally would love to see.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I wasn't a huge fan of the sequel trilogy anyway, but like you, I did like the first 2. And I thought, last episode we were talking to Christine DeMarco about Colin Trevorrow's, who did the Jurassic World stuff.
Duel of the Fates.
Duel of the Fates. So we talked about that lost, script that never came to be, and that sounded like a better option, but that would have led Ben down the dark path, not being redeemed. And so
Yeah.
I'm 100% with you. Like as much as I wasn't a big fan of the sequel trilogy, I'm of the school of thought that any Star Wars is good Star Wars. I'm not one of those fans where it's like, the internet always says, especially if you go on Reddit, no one hates Star Wars more than a Star Wars fan, right? And it's like, I'm not like that. Any chance to get more content, I'm all about. And not even just to meme or to use as my content. Honestly, it's just for my own enjoyment. Like I will first consume something and then decide if I'm gonna like meme it or something like that. So I don't sit there with the lens of like, how can I repurpose this for Rogue, But
Yeah.
but I do genuinely like anything new. Like I even like The Acolyte, and I know a lot of people didn't. And as much of a fan of Boba Fett that I am, I didn't like what they did with the Book of Boba Fett, but I still liked that we got more content,
Yeah.
regardless. So I'm of that school of thought. I don't know how you feel about new Star Wars content, but this sounded intriguing to me.
Yeah, I would agree with a lot of what you said that it's I've heard this analogy before, but if you like pizza, like
Mhm.
certain pizzas might not be your favorite pizza, but it's still pizza. And
Yeah,
so that's kind of the way I am with Star Wars. I will take any Star Wars that I can get. Um, I
absolutely.
think the shows have been really hit or miss in this season.
Mhm.
I think first two seasons of Mando were great. Third was
Oh
really
yeah.
kind of all over the place. I think Andor,
Mhm.
some of the best Star Wars that we've gotten.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
I was really looking forward to Ahsoka because I
Mhm.
love her character from Clone Wars and Rebels. And I thought there were high moments in that show. I loved the episode with her and Anakin. But then
Mhm.
a lot of the show felt just kind of not well written to me. But I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to season two. Um,
Yeah.
Acolyte had some really cool fight scenes for me, but it felt really
Yeah.
wooden and stiff, and I didn't like a lot of the choices there. So yeah, I think I'll take it all. I just wish it was done better right now. And I'm
Yeah.
hopeful this next season of movies, they've learned a lot and
Mhm.
they'll be higher quality. We'll just have to see. I'm actually I know some people are very divided on the new Ray movie that's supposed to come out. I actually really want to see
Yeah.
that because I want them to
Yeah.
redeem the character from how she was handled in episode 9.
I agree with that too. And I think that anytime a creator steps into the world of Star Wars and they're passionate about
Mhm.
the story that they want to tell, we do nothing but benefit. And you saw that
Mhm.
in the first two seasons of Mando because John Favreau and Dave Filoni, I mean, they were storyboarding concepts for that show with action figures, you know,
Yeah.
and or it maybe wasn't them. It might have been Robert Rodriguez when he was doing like all the stuff in season two with like all bringing
Mhm.
back Bo-Katan and Boba Fett and those bigger players. There was behind the scenes of them like acting out things with action figures, and I'm like that is what we need, that level of passion. So
Yeah.
I think with this whole Ben Solo movie idea, the fact that Adam Driver was behind it and he was passionate about telling more stories, he even got from what I read, and this is again very very new news, but from what I heard, he got approval from like Dave Filoni and
Yeah,
um
Lucasfilm
and
was
maybe even
behind it.
Pablo Hidalgo. Yeah, they were behind it, and it
Mhm.
was Bob Iger that kiboshed it. So yeah,
Very
it's
interesting.
unfortunate. But yeah, I love when people are passionate about stories and then that comes through in the storytelling. So I don't doubt that The Hunt for Ben Solo could have been something really great had it had that passion behind it and wasn't just a money grab or a commercialization of trying to keep something going.
It's interesting too because you need the passion, but then you also need people who are really good writers. And I think like George Lucas always had the passion, but he struggled on the writing directing side, which I think is why the original trilogy is so beloved because he had other people helping him in his weakness. And
Yeah,
I think the story of the prequel trilogy is amazing. I don't think the execution always was.
absolutely. Yeah.
And so I look at someone like Dave Filoni, who feels like he is just as passionate about Star Wars as George is, and
Yeah.
is a great storyteller, especially in animation. I don't think he has quite crossed over to learning how. He's not a great writer yet, I think, for live
Mhm.
action. So
Yeah.
I think as he is given more and more power or influence, how good Star Wars is will be his ability to get great writers and not feel like he has to be the hero for everything, which I think there's actually a lot of crossover there for worship leaders. Like, know what your strengths
Yeah.
are, but don't feel like you have to be the one who does it all and push other people
Absolutely.
forward who are better at certain things than you are. So I think Star Wars could learn from that too.
Yeah. I was just going to say the same thing and kind of segue that back to worship because it is true like that you can't do this alone. We as humans and as creatives have weaknesses and areas where maybe we can manage, we can write, we can do whatever. But when we have somebody come along and fill in those weaknesses and you have that interconnectivity of hey, my strengths are covering this person's weakness and their strengths are covering my weakness, that's an amazing recipe. And you see that with these things like Dave Filoni and John Favreau coming together and just being this power team to put out
Yeah.
these great stories. And then when people are left to their own, doing things on their own, it tends to not fall apart a little bit, but you see their weaknesses come through. And I think we see
Right.
that in worship too. If you're a little bit more strong on the production side of things, you're into tech, you might leave like, people might feel a little bit less cared for, not pastored. But if
Yeah.
you pastor too much and forget the tech, then you kind of like lose. So you need that melding of not only, positions, because you can have a tech director, worship leader relationship, but there's also something to be said for having like a mentor mentee type of
Mhm.
relationship too, where you're pouring into somebody and teaching them what you
Yeah.
do, but they're picking up where their strengths come in and they might be complementary to yours. So it's always great to like link up in ministry and do things together. We can never go at it alone.
Yeah, I think that's why another reason why Obi-Wan's my favorite character compared to like an Anakin,
Hmm.
because Anakin always wanted to be the center of his own story. And I
Yeah.
think Obi-Wan, whether or not he was very successful as a mentor is beside the point. He
Right.
got better with age.
Yeah.
But he was about taking his place in the bigger story and pushing someone
Hmm.
else out front and other people out front. And I
Yeah.
think that that's kind of become my mission in this season of ministry is to help whether it's worship leaders or other people in ministry realize there's something that Pastor Stephen said years ago at Elevation that's always stuck with me, and that is that mature ministry is being more excited about what God does through others than what he does through you.
Oh, that's
And
so good.
and I think that is something that I wish every worship leader understood and embraced.
Absolutely. Yeah. We need to be pouring into the next generation and we need to be focusing on bringing other people up and not just being, in worship leading, we can kind of get kind of that rock star mentality or like that, I'm the guy or the girl. And
Yeah.
without me, where would this church be? And like, that's not a healthy mentality. We need to be bringing people up because as we get older, as worship leaders get older, like you need days off too, so it's
Right.
like helpful to bring somebody up to like help cover those days off, but then also like duplicate yourself in someone else, be a mentor, be that Obi-Wan, be that Yoda to the next generation coming up and just helping them as much as you can. I think there's so much more joy and fulfillment in that than even doing it on your own.
Yeah, I
100%.
totally agree.
Yeah. And so you and I have similar kind of stories as I just recently stepped out of a worship ministry position where I was heavily, training somebody else. And that was actually one of the line items in my job description early on was raising up this worship leader who is my associate worship leader under me. And so at leaving that ministry and as you've left the worship ministry, kind of our focuses have like pivoted to helping out others and making sure that others are lifted up and be able to do the same things we were able to do. So talk to me a little bit about what you're doing now to kind of support worship and ministry professionals, training. I know you wrote a book. It's called This Dream Is Not For You.
Yeah, so this dream is not for you. I wrote that book my final year on staff at Elevation, and it's based like biblically on the story of how David wanted to build the temple, and God said, "That's a good dream, but it's not for you to do. It's for your son Solomon." And then you see David actually resourcing Solomon to live in the dream that David had once wanted to live in. And I use that as an entry point to talk about how it's so easy to take the things that we love to do and just kind of pretend God co-signed it as our calling and the end all be all of our life. It might be a certain assignment for a season or it might not be. But I think our calling is something much bigger and it's something that we carry with us into jobs we love, jobs we hate. And I think as Christians, we have to learn to still dream, to still have great expectation, to still have faith, but to dream with open hands and like, okay, God, I trust you. This dream may be from you, it may not be, but help me not put my significance and fulfillment in a singular dream. Help me submit to your dream for your kingdom and for my life. And so the book walks through a lot of my journey at Elevation and some of the transitions I had to make there. It walks through seasons with my kids. All three of my kids had different health issues, and it was a really scary journey with them. And God's been so kind to us. But like, it wasn't until I laid down my dream of being a worship leader and a songwriter, a dream that I thought I could never live without, that then I had open hands to have a new dream of writing a book or a new dream of preaching or a new dream of doing all the things that I'm doing now. So that's a message I'm very passionate about. So I have
That's
that. I
awesome.
have a a podcast and YouTube channel. All this stuff is just at wadejoye.com. Put the E on the joy. A lot of people forget that. And then I have a group for men in ministry called the Steadfast Way. And we meet weekly. And it's a way for me to help mentor men on how to carry every aspect of their calling well. So as husbands, as fathers, with integrity, leading the people that God's entrusted to them well. We talk through how to have rhythms of prayer and just, we talk about a lot. And it's one of the biggest blessings professionally for me right now. I really love doing that. And I still coach worship leaders and teams and go in and do team nights and preach at churches and stuff like that. So there's a lot that I enjoy. If you want to find any ways to work with me or find out more about the book, just go to wadejoye.com.
Awesome. No, that's great. Wade, I'm so excited for your journey and where God has taken you, kind of stepping more into that Obi-Wan role and a little less of Anakin. So thanks for sharing that. Appreciate you, man. Let's go to a Star Wars celebration at some point down the road, if it's ever back in the States. And yeah, let's do some more stuff together. You'll probably be seeing me share some of Wade's stuff after this podcast airs. Definitely go check out his website, check out his book, This Dream Is Not For You. All right, Wade, thank you so much for your time today. May the force be with you. Thanks.
Thanks, Scott.